Hi everyone, welcome back to PHARMA KNACK. Today I am going to tell you about H2 receptors, which is the continuation of the previous video. So the image depicted in this is a parietal cells. As we all know that parietal cell is present over the lining of the stomach lumen, and the parietal cell is very important in the secretion of the H plus ion to the stomach lumen, which is necessary for the synthesis of the HCl, that is gastric acid. So the H2 receptor is present over the parietal cells. So H2 receptor is present over the parietal cells, and when histamine got bind over to the H2 receptor, there will be a hike in the cyclic AMP within the parietal cells, and which will lead to the activation of the H plus K plus ATPase, which is the proton pump. So guys, please keep in mind that not only histamine is responsible for the activation of this proton pump, the hormone like gastrin and neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, when bind over to their respective receptors like G receptors and M2 receptors, will also lead to the elevation of the calcium within the parietal cells, and the elevated calcium and elevated cyclic AMP both can lead to the activation of the H plus and K plus proton pump. So when the H plus K plus proton pump got activated, and there will be a antipode movement of the H plus ion from parietal cells to the gastric lumen, and K plus ion from the lumen to the parietal cells. Hence the H plus ions reaches the gastric lumen, and the chloride ion, which is needed for the synthesis of the gastric acid, is reached to the gastric lumen from the blood vessels, and from the lumen the HCl is formed. This is how the gastric acid is formed. So this is the mechanism behind the H2 receptors, which is responsible for the gastric acid secretion. Now let's discuss about the distribution of H2 receptor in our body and their actions mediated. It can be found over gastric glands, which help in acid secretion, and over the blood vessels, which help in dilation, and in heart the H2 receptors can be found over atria and ventricles. In atria it help in positive chronotropy, and in ventricle it is responsible for the positive ionotropy, and in uterus it is responsible for the relaxation of the uterus, and in brain it acts as a neurotransmitters. So that's all about H2 receptors.